I'm sure you've heard the story of the Princess and the Pea, and if you haven't, it kind of goes like this, that the princess was so delicate that even if you laid 10 mattresses on top of each other, she'd still complain about the lump in the bed because there was a pea right under the very bottom one. And I'm not exactly certain what that story's about. Maybe I'll look it up and we can talk about it later, but in essence, really, it's the same kind of thing for those of us who strive for perfection. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that everything we do is perfect, because that's probably an impossible goal anyway, but what we do is strive for it. And the difficulty, of course, is that we can't just hide things under rugs. So this is a long-winded way of saying that the thought of that switch being upside down and if you have a look at the most recent video, you'll see what I mean. That switch being upside down has been unnerving me, to be perfectly honest, and so I'm going to have to find a way of making sure that it's the right way up. And the reason is actually quite simple. It's not a heap to do with perfection anyway, really. Look, let me put this down and I'll carry on. It's more a case of not having to try to remember which way the switch is. So in Australia, when a switch is down, it's on; when it's up, it's off. So if I have to remember that that particular switch is in fact in reverse, so that when it's down, it's off, I'm almost certain to get it wrong from time to time, because we shouldn't have to rely on our memory. We should just have to rely on those patterns that we build up, or those habits that we form, or those things that we know to be true. Anyway, we're going to fix it. And then the other thing that I want to do too is let's get that fan actually working. The fan and that switch. So let's take this off and then we'll flip that switch over. So here's the switch here. At the moment it's off, but it's pointing down, so we're going to have to flip it around. And we have the technology. So that's done. What's interesting is that I don't know whether it's designed for the American market or not, but when it's off, as in off like that, up, it's upside down, as in the lettering, but who really cares? That's on, that's off. There we go, switched on and power. Let's try the fan, hey? We've wired her up, the switcher on, and we'll press the button, which is there. We've got 3 speeds. All going according to plan. Now the big thing is, of course, is getting this to mount flat, so we can slot this in whichever way it goes. I think like so. Let's turn that off. And so I do wonder if this cable is slightly too thick. whether we do need to fasten that thinner cable on it. Let's try that. So I put that thinner cable in and it works. So I think maybe we just have to connect this to that thicker cable and just use this thinner cable, at least for now. So let's try mounting this before we go and find a piece of plywood and see if we can get it to work, in which case we'll just go straight ahead and connect up those two cables. So I've discovered what the problem is, because I went to plan B, which was to mount it somewhere else, and I still had the same difficulty getting this to go on there, which it does so easily when it's sitting like that, but not so easily when I've mounted the plate. And I've discovered the problem. It's got nothing to do with the cable at all, but what I've been using to mount it with. So see these two holes here, I've been using one of those and just putting a screw in like that and then trying to mount it. But the problem then is, as you'll see, is that this plate will no longer slide across, and that's because that hole there aligns with that there, and those holes are actually for the cables to go out of. Should you mount it against something, they'll align with the cables themselves. Should you mount it on something, that'll enable the cables to go out the back. The actual screw mounting holes are these tiny little holes here and here. See those two? It probably says that somewhere in the instructions, but you know, no one ever reads those. So all we've got to do is find a couple of self-tappers that have got countersink heads. Maybe not necessarily common, but let's have a look and see what we can find. We're up to about plan X or Y or something or other, but we've gone back to that whole idea of mounting it on a block of wood, because that way we can put in quite fine screws. So then we've got to mount the block of wood somewhere, and the ideal spot is where we originally looked, which is in that center brace. And there's already two holes in it, which I didn't actually check. Might line up with it. Let's have a look. No, they don't, but nevertheless they might do for mounting the block of wood. I don't know whether you can see that, but the problem is, because there's always a problem, is that someone's busted off a screw in one of the holes. So I tried to drill it, but of course the drill just skids off the shaft of the screw and hits the hits the metal frame. So let's drop that and then slowly dismantle the car until we get to the point where we don't need to anymore. This often seems to be the case, so let's go and get ourselves a spanner. Now how's that go? 'Cause you canna hand a man a grander spanner. Remember those ads? Probably don't. I do.
Sitting throwing rocks across the pavement, hoping it will cave in and swallow me whole. Wondering why my mind keeps on spinning. This isn't how living to me.
Bizarrely, there's a plate there. Let's see if that comes off. Really, you can see that, but it actually looks as though it's been spot welded on. See the tiny spot welds here? So what we'll do is punch that out, and then it should just drop out the bottom. Yep. We should be able to knock that free with a nail or something, because it's sort of sunk now. It's disappeared inside, but it's obviously long, so we might have to get a screwdriver. It's right there, and see if we can knock it over So I can feel it right here. It's come through exactly in the middle there. Understandable. Let's see if we can knock it to one side. That's more like it. There we go. You hear it? And there it is. You see that? Tip of the screw. Yeah, we did it. Now let's see if we can mount this timber piece on this while it's out. So in order to get the right spot for the next hole, I'm thinking we might try something like putting something sharp in there, prop it up, and then give this a bang. That did. So there's our mark. So now we've got the approximate spot. We're just going to measure it and make sure we put a hole in the right spot in terms of halfway through. Let's see how good we are. I don't know what I did with the screwdriver. And they line up. So as you can see, we've countersunk these because that's actually wider than that. But what we'll do is we'll mount this while we're at it, and then it's just a matter of hooking it on. So let's just do that. We're just using the micrometer, but that's good enough for me. We've got a couple of screws. I am a bit concerned that they're a bit too long. Let's just try screwing them in. These are self-tappers. And see what happens when they hit the bottom, or how much we've got left. That's pretty good. One small problem. We haven't put the little nuts on that hold the fan in place once it's mounted. So let's do that. And what we'll also do is, because I think these are reaching the bottom, is we'll just nip the ends off so that we can make sure they go all the way in. If that makes sense to you. And I have just nipped the end off. We don't need the point anymore, because we've created the screw now, so I'll just go straight back in. And because I've shortened them, they won't be hitting the bottom. Good and solid. Let's do a quick test fit, and then we'll go and get ourselves a lunch break. Perfect. Now look at that. So the decision's been made for me. The heavier cable won't reach, so we're going to use the finer cable and then connect them along the side, so things just work out. So which way is it gonna go on? This way? That would work. Or this way. Goes either way. I think this way here, because there's like a slot there, and then that faces the back, so that when we tilt it, it'll be facing down. So let's run that cable. There we go. It's up there. Now we've just got to connect those two up, and then we'll test it. There we go, she's mounted, and the ultimate indignity was that the wiring on the fan was marked wrong. So while I had power to the connection and power to the power, etc., blah blah blah, all the way down the wire, there was none at the actual fan, so it wouldn't turn on. So I take the fan back down again, check the connections, only to find in fact that it was showing a negative current. So even though it's marked positive on the cable that's provided with the fan, it's actually the negative terminal. So I have no bloody idea. Doesn't really matter. We just reverse them and it works. I can't quite reach in. Even with that, so I'll clamber in and I'll show you it working. Hey, so first of all we have to turn it on here, and look, while this seems awkward here, it's only because I would normally be in the vehicle, and there's the on switch here, and then the button here. 3 speeds. And it tilts like so, so I could have it pointing right at me. While dozing. How about that? So now all that's left to do is to tidy up, and then that's those 2 jobs completed that I said I was going to do. So I flipped the switch around, as I said, so that the on is down now and rather than up, and we got that installed, even though it gave us quite a few challenges along the way, and especially that last one where it was all wired up and then I flicked the switch and nothing, only to discover in fact that the wiring for the fan itself, as in provided with the fan, is marked positive when in fact it's negative. So that threw us, but we got it done. Thanks for watching.